Hello Facebookers, Steve Barrett here, VP Editorial Director of PR Week. About to do our weekly podcast. Got a great guest this week, Michael Olguin, CEO of Havas Formula. Michael, welcome.
Thank you.
Looking forward to finding out more about the agency and PR at Havas and various other issues. Frank Washgood is here. Frank, it's been a while.
It has been a while, hasn't it?
So,
I wonder how you say your name. That's
probably doesn't say it how I pronounce it actually, but anyway, that's a long-running one.
It takes a while to get there.
Believe me, I've heard a variety of versions on mine.
And I'm Steve Barrett. So we're about to start going. God, I've lost my mojo here. I've forgotten how to podcast, everyone. So let's hope it improves, eh? If you've got any comments, please leave them at the end. Ask questions. Be nice. Don't have to be horrible on social media. Let's up the game, eh? And we're going to start shooting when I get the signal from webmaster Sean Zarnecki, who's behind the dials with Mickey Brown today.
Here you go.
Hello and welcome to the PR Week, PR Week's regular weekly roundup of everything that matters in the worlds of PR and communications. My name's Steve Barrett. I'm the Editorial Director of PR Week. Going to guide you gently through the next 30, maybe 35 minutes as we review the events of the week in the company of our very special guest, Michael Olguin, who's President and CEO of Havas Formula. Michael, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
It's great to have you here, and looking forward to finding out more about Formula as well as Havas PR and various trends. And we got Frank Washgood here, fresh from the Toronto Marathon.
Fresh is not how I would describe it, but I'm here and in one piece. So
yeah, how was it? It was your first marathon this weekend, up north of the border.
North of the border, and it makes me an international marathoner, of course.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there are moments where you start wondering why you didn't take up golf as often,
or chess,
darts, or anything that requires less movement, less painful. But no, it went well. Yeah.
You made it round.
Made it around, yeah. It was touch and go for a minute.
Well, they talk about the 1%, financially. You're actually the 1% of the world that actually run a marathon.
Good to know.
And Michael,
it's the real 1%.
You've run 9 marathons.
9 marathons, yeah.
So, I mean, I once did a 5K. And that nearly killed me. So it was on the hottest day in London, summer's day I can remember, and one person died on the way around. So yeah, it
happens.
Yeah, I mean, well, yes, it's not a thing to be taken lightly. So we're going to chat to Michael. We're going to go through the Agency Business Report 2019, which came out a couple of weeks ago. Talk about trends and findings from that. GM has appointed MSL for their Cadillac brand. We'll find out more about that. We've launched the 9th version of our Diversity Distinction in PR Awards, so we'll talk about that. And Home Depot has upped Stephen Holmes to the VP of Comms. And we'll chat about the Brand Film Festival, which took place last Thursday. Great success in New York City, and that was at the Paley Center for Media. Excellent event. You can find out see all the films at brandfilmfestival.com. But let's start with you, Michael. Tell us a little bit about Havas Formula. Formula was acquired how many years ago?
So it's just about 4.5. So December of 2014 we got acquired. So we actually, March of this year, we celebrated 27 years.
Okay.
Yeah,
congratulations. And how's it going within the holding company model, and what's the biggest difference between that and running as an independent?
It's interesting. When we went through this process, I think part of our reason for wanting to go through an acquisition was you get to a certain point where you get into big pitches and a big brand is going to say to you, are you able to scale enough for us? And that sort of became the challenge for us, because in 2013 we were in some really big pitches, and the question came back is like, we love you, we like your team, we like the creative ideas, we just don't think you're big enough. And so then you start to second guess, like, what's the best way, how to do it? And there's really 3 ways. You could do it the old-fashioned way, organically, sort of trudge up the mountain like you've been doing. You could either then go and sort of acquire agencies, which is sort of my really good friend Scott Allison from Allison Partners. That's sort of one of their strategies, is acquisition. Yeah. Or the third way is to go through and get acquired. And so we thought about all those 3 options, and we had sort of gone, we felt like grew as fast as we could with our current approach, and we thought like the best way to do it was probably to go through an acquisition process. So we went through, like everybody else does, is you hire a banker. It's like you're selling a house, you beautify your house, make sure you're ready to go out in the marketplace. And we, ended up with Havas, which we only talked to one holding company. We talked to a lot of other potential buyers, but only one holding company, because we didn't really we were looking for a relationship that was going to be strategic and accretive, and not just adding another agency to your portfolio when you're competing with all your sister agencies. So we just really weren't interested in that. And so we ended up with Havas, and it's really, I sort of used the numbering, 1 to 10. I thought the first year it was a nice solid 7. It was really good. I think we were filling each other out, trying to understand how this all works. I hadn't had a boss in a long time. What it's like to work with a larger organization. We're fast, nimble, try to move really quickly, opportunize those situations. And then we were in a bigger organization where there was process, way beyond process in our
You've got to service the holding company, haven't you?
Yeah, well, you have people to answer. And if you want to order a computer, it's different. So those kinds of things. So it took us a little while to get our legs under us, but it was, I think on a 7 for the first year was really good. It has gotten progressively better every year. I mean, the leaders of of Havas North America, Paul Mirabella, who's our North American CEO, and then Frank Mangano, who is our North American CFO, are my buddies. I mean, they're just guys I want to have a beer with. They're really good guys, and I think that's what you want to have when you're reporting into a new organization, is have a personal and a business relationship. It doesn't mitigate the expectations, but you want to have a personal relationship where you can feel like you can go to each other when you.
And have you seen the benefit in being able to win those types of business, those larger types of business?
We have been, I would say, sort of the gold star of the acquisition process from Havas, in that we have continued to grow. We've doubled our size in the period of time that we've been on board, for 4.5 years. So that's been a big win for them, and it's extremely profitable. So that part is really exciting from the holding company standpoint. But from our perspective, what we now have access to is a whole sort of plethora of new service offerings. So we now have access to creative, we have access to a much more expansive digital, more access to CRM, or any of these other service offerings. We call that approach, we call it the village approach. So the client sits in the middle, and all of these different service offerings sort of are operationalized against big brands. And the winner means it's the client, because you don't have all these agencies who you're dealing with. You're dealing with one group of people sitting under one roof, and it's highly efficient.
Yeah, and where are you at in the earnout process?
I have a 5-year earnout, so I'm almost at the end of my 5-year earnout. But my plan is to continue on. It's I love what I'm doing. It's a great organization. I feel energized by it. Somebody said to me, "Do you feel like you're giving up your baby now that you've sold your business?" And I sort of said, I feel like my baby's going to college. It's this expansion of a relationship where I feel like there's just a lot of upside. And the relationship with Havas at a macro level, there's a true belief at a macro level of PR, and sort of this whole evolution of engagement, and that's where we sort of live in.
Your agency grew up maybe pigeonholed a little bit as a Hispanic-focused agency.
Oh, no. That's one division. No. That's just one division.
One division?
Yeah, it's just one division. I mean, we have 12 persons that are in our Havas Formula Latin division. We've been in that sort of business for about 10 or maybe 12 years, something like that. It's a big priority. The marketplace is growing. There's estimating 62, 63 million consumers, Hispanic, Latinos, Hispanic market. And the growth of that, which is really interesting, it's not the obvious. It's not the Floridas, the California, the Texas, the New York, and the Chicagos. It's the Carolinas, it's the Midwest. I mean, you have growth everywhere, and so it's super exciting. Now, as an agency, I still would love to see brands spending more on that consumer. Yeah. And I think there's this sort of sense that it's becoming a little bit homogenized, and that I can reach them by taking a general market approach. We still don't see the big spend that brands are using against general market like they should be spending against the consumer market. But we have a couple of clients that have just double-digit growth in their spend, and really starting to see some absolute value proposition in really working in the Latino marketplace. TurboTax is a classic example. We just came out of our season, and they are raving. In fact, we're going out there next week to present we call it seasons. The season just ended. And going out there to sort of talk about the successful program that our team put forth on their behalf, and it's really a great relationship in that they truly are leaning in on the Latino marketplace, and I would love to see other brands doing that.
Yeah, it's a business opportunity missed if brands are not engaging in that.
That's
isn't
correct.
it? And we see that from the advertising world, from PR across the board.
For sure.
Some brands are really leaning into it and seeing the benefits, and some are actually still not, seem to not have even noticed the fact that population's changing,
Yeah. I mean, I think there's numbers like 2 out of every 5 babies is going to be Latino. I mean, it's just growth. It's crazy.
Yeah, you've only got to walk around, the New York Auto Show or you know, any of these places, and you see the profile of consumers, and it's just good business. Isn't it? So,
well, you know, and it's interesting because that sort of ties back into what you were talking about, diversity, and that's why it's super important for an organization to have that kind of diversity, because if you're going to represent or target that kind of consumer, you need to understand how that consumer thinks,
sure.
what their motivations are, what sort of drives their purchase decisions.
Yeah, we'll get on to that. Finally, talk about PR within Havas, because we've had chats over the years about, do we include Havas Formula as a separate agency? Is it part of Havas PR? There's Republica Havas now, which won a PR Week award this year. But how's it all set up? It's always confused me a little bit, I'm not going to lie. And James Wright is the new CEO of Havas PR.
James is a good friend of mine,
So tell me how the whole thing sort of pieces together.
So the organization is, Havas at a macro level is broken into three primary divisions. You have Havas Creative, Havas Media, and Havas Health and You. That's sort of the whole organization is broken down into those three areas. And we were acquired by Havas Creative. Even though we're all one entity, we are broken up into these three. And Havas PR rolls up under Havas Media. For whatever reason that was set up, whenever it was set up, that's the way it's set up. So we are completely separate entities, though we report up into the same organization. And then Republica was acquired by Havas Creative as well. And we have a great relationship with them down in Miami, Jorge and his crew down in Miami. And they have a PR offering as well. Theirs is more obviously Latino, and we'll be collaborating more closely to it with them and pitching together.
Yeah, and of course the nature of marketing services these days, I mean, Havas Health does a vast amount of PR, doesn't it, within it?
Absolutely.
And so the Havas PR business is in the media group, and that is that what James looks after?
That's correct.
Right, so.
And what James is really being charged with is sort of linking together our global collective. And that's something that I think that we need to improve upon. I think all brands are going to be looking at how can they globalize their partners, their agency partners, so they can get efficiencies. And it's something that we really, as an organization, we need to improve. And we need to have a better offering, a more robust offering, and a better story to tell globally, which we don't have as much as we could and should. And we're working on. I'm super inspired by what James is going to try to accomplish there.
Well, that's a good cue to bring in Frank, because we're going to start by talking about the Agency Business Report 2019. Came out a couple of weeks ago, jam-packed full, great content, profiles, features, analysis and trends, and do check it out, prweek.com. There's a lot of content there, and it bears reading and rereading and maybe referring to over the year. But so what were the big findings for you, Frank?
Well, I think the biggest one, and I think you pointed this out in the big picture feature that you did, was that a lot of the great work out there is coming from the small and mid-sized shops now. It's but you also hear a lot about this when you're out doing meetings. People say things to you that they didn't used to say, like, hey, what's going on at the big agencies? Are they changing? Are they, doing different things than they used to? So, you definitely hear about that when you're out there talking to people, and I think it definitely showed up in the ABR this year, in the Agency Business Report.
Yeah, I guess you've got the benefit really that you're a mid-sized firm, but you're within a holding company.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We talk about
that's
exactly what we do. We sort of play big when we need to be big. We can play small when we need to play small. It just depends on where the opportunity lies, because our heritage is in startup challenger brands, and we don't want to lose that. We love those kinds of brands, the Justins, the Siggies, those kinds of brands that grow to be big, strong, powerful CPG brands. Well, they were a nothing brand at a certain point in time, and we don't want to lose that. So we don't want to be perceived as too big to work on those kind of brands. At the same time, we also want to be in big pitches. So we have to be able to sort of, punch above our weight when we need to be able to do that.
Were there any things that stood out for you in this year's report?
I think that the what we're seeing and what we're hearing from clients is that there's a tremendous amount of expectations of metrics. Everybody is looking at this as how can you continue to measure, and we've heard this forever. I've been in PR nearly 30 years, so it's something that we've heard forever, and I think that the better that we can get at measuring that, so that to me is one thing I think from an important part that we're all challenged by. And the second part, I think from my perspective, is that I think that we need to be better consultants to our clients. We need to help drive business metrics for them. We need to not be looking at, oh, we got you press and look at our impressions. We have to be, hey, we got you press. That press drove your business. That helped you grow sales. That helped drive velocity. That helped drive top of the funnel awareness. Things that are more metrics, more tangible. Those are the things that are really top of mind for me that I think are really important to all agencies. And everybody's going to be talking about this in the next 2-3 years in a bigger way.
Yeah, and do you feel the tools, there's never been more tools and data and analytics for people to look at. Do you feel we're finally crossing that threshold into being able to demonstrate to clients the real value of what PR people do?
I will always believe that the best way to utilize PR is what you use to build a brand. I think it's an annualized program. It's an awareness building program, but then you have to do tactical executions that drive sales. So the awareness is built through the PR, and some of the tactical executions are how you actually drive velocity. So whether you're doing promotions or influencer programs or those kinds of things. So do I think the metrics where they need to be? No, not at all. And for example, we've been contacted by a variety of different clients, prospective clients that are more performance-based clients that are doing the advertorials and that kind of stuff. Well, those kind of clients are amazingly knowledgeable about their sales. They know what they spend, what their ROI is in all regards. They're not good PR clients, because as a good PR client, they're trying to measure every single thing that you do and how that turned into sale. And PR doesn't really work that way.
That's more the marketing mentality.
Correct.
Are you finding more and more of your clients coming from the marketing department?
No, not necessarily that. I think that the biggest part is you're just finding that all marketing departments have a limited knowledge of PR and how it actually works. And I think that that's something that we're always going to be facing. I think that we sometimes talk about our interns, our account coordinators, and our AAEs probably know more about PR in their 1 or 2 years of experience than most traditional marketers, because it's not something that everybody studies. If you go through a traditional MBA program, you don't get a lot of exposure to PR. And then you get into a big company, into sort of a blue chip style of approach and a very templated approach. That isn't always reflective of how PR works and operationalized. So I think that that's one of the biggest areas for growth from the marketing side that brand marketers could really gain to have a better understanding of it, because we have this amazing evolution that's going into consumer engagement. And I believe that's where the PR is going. It's getting harder and harder to generate earned media. It just really is.
Frank, right at the top of the table, it's getting quite interesting because Edelman,
tightening up a bit.
It is. I mean, Edelman didn't grow last year, and Weber did. And if those results are repeated this year, Weber will actually be the biggest PR firm in the world, which is stunning when you think about it, because I think Edelman was, 150, maybe 200 million.
Yes, it looked like a given at one time, didn't it? That Edelman would be the first to 1 billion, and now that's in doubt. We could have a Kentucky Derby like finish.
Well, as long as we don't have a disqualification and a controversy like that.
I just mean highly dramatic.
Indeed, yeah. But yeah,
like the Warriors game today.
Yeah,
it is interesting because you see. Clients, someone was quoted in my feature, and I should be able to remember who it is, but saying a client doesn't really care how, they're not fixated on getting to $1 billion in revenue or growing or whatever. That's not what they're interested in. They're interested in getting the best service and the best people on their business, aren't they? And if you're an $800 million company, I guess you're not going to get the top people on every account, and whereas I guess you could probably get involved in most of your accounts.
I would say to you that every client wants the best possible team they can have. Can you at that size be able to put the best possible team on every piece of business? That probably would be challenging. There's not enough outstanding PR people in the world to fill all that. At the same time, and we're constantly vetting and constantly educating, trying to get our team as good as you possibly can be. And that's sort of our we always talk about this, is you have to have a point of view. Like goes back to this whole comment about consulting. If you do not have a point of view, you're not going to go to the next meeting. It's really, they're paying for consulting. They're hiring you for a point of view.
They don't want people sitting silently in meetings.
And the biggest criticism you hear about the big agencies is you could have 5, 10, 12 people sitting on a call, and 1 person or 2 persons participating, but you're paying for every single one of those persons to be in a meeting. And that is where the big agencies are highly criticized, and the medium and the small agencies are opportunizing. They're just seeing that as a way to leverage.
Yeah, and obviously I'm not diminishing what big agencies can do. They bring some great work to the table. Doing some fantastic work. We saw, Edelman winning Gerber Baby Campaign of the Year. We saw Weber Shandwick winning a bunch of awards for their 3 p.m. work with Budweiser, and this is some great work. But I do think, and it's horses for courses, but I do think that you get to a certain level and you have to keep growing, really, don't you, to keep the momentum, and that you've got to make sure you don't concentrate more on growing than keeping your clients happy, and that's it's not easy.
Well, you think about a big agency like that and a 1 or 2% growth, you kind of go, well, that's not a lot of growth, but you look at what it's against, you know, versus an agency our size, grow 10, 12, 14, 15%. It's big growth for us, but comparatively, it's
we saw some stunning growth figures, you know, amongst the mid-sized firms for sure. So do check it out. I mean, there's so much to see there, and a lot of work went into it by the team, and it bears some attention. Frank, let's just quickly cover Brand Film Festival before we move on. It was last Thursday.
Yes, really good work. Really good work. Good night. And you're going to ask me to pick a favorite, aren't you?
Well, maybe pick a couple out.
Well, there was a real tearjerker of one about a dog named Pip, who was he wanted to be a service animal, but was a bit on the small side, and try as he might, kept messing up and leading people into, you know, tripping over stuff, and eventually saves the day. Real pulling at the heartstrings.
A happy ending.
So, yeah, but it had a happy ending.
And was it a brand? Which brand was making that film? No, don't tell me you can't remember.
I just remember
the
Pip,
classic problem.
I just remember
amazing
Pip.
Idea.
Yeah, amazing, but I can't remember who the client is. But it was for a organization that trains the dogs in the Southeast.
Yeah.
That probably narrows it down to.
Yeah, looking through all the films. Is there a danger with brand films that they get too cause related, and that area of content obviously works well, but after you've watched like 15 of them in a row, you're like, can we have some entertainment or some fun? Yes. You know, I mean, it's like, I've only got so many tears and that sort of thing. And there was an element that a lot of brand films seem to be based in that area, don't they?
Yeah, I think when you look at those, you might, you know, back to back, you'd probably come away with that. I think when you think about, though, the consumer today is so driven by what the brand stands for. And so if there is truth in what that film is about, and it's truth about what they're trying to convey, it means a lot to today's consumer. And so I think that's probably why you're getting a lot of that.
I think you're right, and that is why the PR Week conference this year is all about purpose. It's called Purpose Principles, PR Decoded, and it'll be in Chicago on October the 17th. Thank you for teeing up a little plug there. Frank, GM, interesting appointment there. They've put MSL on the Cadillac business, and that's very interesting in the context of the agency changes over at GM over the last couple of years, isn't it?
It sure is, because MSL did used to work with Cadillac before the...
did they work with Cadillac, or was it other parts of GM's business?
Well, they definitely worked with GM. So before the big reshuffle a couple of years ago, when Cadillac was paired with Covert Creative, which was then a brand new shop founded by former PMK BNC executives. And now, a few years later, they are with MSLGroup. So that's a really interesting one, and it comes on the heels of the GMC and Buick business switching from M Booth over to Weber Shandwick a couple of weeks ago. So a lot of moves happening over at GM, really interesting to see. And so bottom line is that the Cadillac account moving from Covert over to MSL.
Well, we work on the Jaguar Land Rover business, and the automotive PR and marketing is evolving pretty dramatically. And I think one of the things that sort of has been the biggest sort of changes that's happened in it, it hasn't been dramatic, but it's definitely a bigger evolution, is this major focus on not so much the traditional endemic media, but more of the lifestyle media, and to try to be part of the lifestyle marketplace, so that you are driving, talking to mom and talking to teens and tweens and millennials, so that you're speaking to them in not only in the language that they can connect with, but also in the publications or the outlets that they read.
And that'd be even more so with like a Cadillac than it would be for like a Ford, with a luxury brand. Right?
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, I think that it just depends upon what the model is. Again, every model has a different sort of strategy. How do you like, for example, for Jaguar, we just launched their or their I-Pace, and that's their first electric vehicle. And of course, everybody on the electric vehicle side is all competing against Tesla, because Tesla is sort of the yeah, it is. And so you're trying to compete, and all of our editorial coverage all said, the I-Pace is better than the Tesla. So for us, that's a huge badge, that's a huge win. You leverage that as much as you can and that's from the automotive media. But we also still need to drive much more of the lifestyle media, and that's really where the consumer is really.
Webmaster Sean Sarnecki spent a day at the New York Auto Show recently. Are the auto shows still a big vehicle for promoting cars?
They are. Are we going to continue this?
Welcome to a day in the PR Week newsroom, my friend.
It's interesting. What you're seeing, the biggest trend around auto shows is pre-auto show. So while the auto shows are noisy and a lot going on, so now everybody's doing something pre-auto show so that they can optimize the sort of share of voice going on. So pretty much all brands are doing something 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 days in advance of the auto show. They are still a big priority. They still drive a lot of consumer engagement, but a lot of it is going to depend on the excitement and share of voice is going to be dependent upon what are you rolling out. What's your another one, sorry. What new product you're going to be launching?
Well, I'm sure that's fueling a lot of sales. Not on the electrical car. Although one of my favourite YouTube videos is the driver who took their Tesla into the gas station and was trying to work out where to put the gas in. But anyway, that one's worth checking out. Yeah, that's an interesting on MSL again and GM. GM did this year-long process where they put one agency on each brand because they found they were getting a lot of different agencies working on the same brand, and the agencies spent more time sort of jockeying with each other than working on them. So they did that, and they chose some Booth and Covert were slightly out of left field, and both of those relationships have now ended, and they've gone back to MSL and Weber, who already had a piece of the business. So interesting stuff. And MSL has a big presence in China and Asia, where Cadillac is growing, although who knows what will happen.
Well, you need this nice mixture of product knowledge, so you have to have persons on your team who really have an understanding of automotive, and that's not, oh, it's beautiful, and oh, it's great colors, or no, these are great, features. It's, how is what size of engine is it, all the other product stuff. But then at the same time, then you need this lifestyle side, so you can make it contextually relevant to that end user.
And you do need scale as well for those,
for sure.
And having that global presence, I think, helped MSL for sure. Let's talk diversity distinction in PR awards. Frank, we've just launched our 9th iteration in partnership
just
with PR Council. And
can you believe it's our 9th?
No, I can't actually, because that's pretty much dovetails with my time at the brand. So yeah, I had a full head of hair when we kicked it off, but there you go.
So first, the important stuff. The deadline for submissions is Tuesday, July 9th, so make sure that you get your submissions in before then. And the ceremony is scheduled for Thursday, September 19th. It's part of the PR Council's annual dinner in New York. The categories include Best PR Firm Diversity Initiative, Diversity Champion, and Best Campaign by a Diverse and Inclusive Team, Best In-House Diversity Initiative, and Outstanding Young Professional.
I've seen the progression over the 9 years, but clearly there's still a long way to go with diversity in the profession. Michael, where do you think we're at? People pay a lot of lip service to this subject.
Yeah, what? I will say to you that we have historically as an industry paid a lot of lip service. I will say to you, probably 2019 is the year of diversity and inclusion. I mean, everybody is talking about it. We've had a couple of clients ask us for our diversity and inclusion plan and want to see how we're tracking against that, because they're holding their agencies accountable to that kind of stuff. So it is becoming not just lip service anymore, but really a priority. But the biggest issue and challenge is you have to go way upstream. There's just not enough practitioners who feel the check the box kind of thing where you can feel really good about it. Everybody is competing for talent. I mean, that's our issue in our industry at a macro level, whether you looked at general market, Hispanic, Latino, African American, whatever, everybody's chasing good talent. But when you start to sever off how few Latinos there are in the marketplace, how few African American there are in the marketplace, you have everybody competing for the same individuals, and it makes it tough. It makes it really, really tough.
Yeah, I feel that when clients start putting those measures in place, that's when it will change, because they're basically saying you're not going to get our business unless you have a diverse workforce that represents our customers.
And it makes sense. It makes sense, right? If you want to understand how a particular target market thinks, reacts, how can me, I'm actually Latino, so that part is easy. How do you actually know you're making a lot of assumptions unless you have a sensibility?
Yeah, you hear these crazy stories of, all white male teams walking in to pitch for a female hygiene product,
right.
or and it still happens, and you think to yourself, what are these people thinking? So yeah, look, one of the things we want to do with the awards and with our partners, the PR Council, is just to celebrate the best practice, celebrate the individuals who are excelling, and just try and push the ball down the pitch without being, but being realistic about it. The ideal is not to even need these awards.
No, for sure, it's a big priority for Havas. I mean, there's no question about it. The program that we've launched this year is a mentoring program for Latino markets with the University of Florida and with Florida State, and it's a mentoring program. So it's not an internship program. It's like you get assigned a person who has an interest in the industry, and you help them navigate the marketplace, whether that be getting an internship, whether that be interviewing for a job, filling out a resume, things like that are going to really help them with their. So it's a really different way of approaching it versus just an internship-based strategy, which all organizations do.
Yeah, well, I hope we'll see that in the diversity awards. Yeah, nice one. Frank, Home Depot, they've got a new VP of Corporate Communications.
Yes, they do. New communications leader at Home Depot is Stephen Holmes. He is going to be VP of Corporate Comms and External Affairs, reporting to Teresa Wynn Roseborough, who is the EVP General Counsel and Corporate Secretary of the company. So he replaces Stacy Tank, who was moved over to a role leading VP of leading Home Services, a whole business division at Home Depot.
It's moved up actually into a business role, which was great for Stacy and who was our chair of jury for the PR Week Awards this year, actually. But that's interesting that Stephen's reporting into the General Counsel, isn't it?
Yes.
And not necessarily. Every organisation is different, and clearly, that doesn't always work out. We've seen, at United Airlines when, the reporting into the chief of HR, I think, and then the general counsel. It doesn't always work out, does it?
No, I think that you typically you're going to find an organization that is reporting up to legal is more of a defensive measure. They're concerned about crisis, they're concerned about saying the wrong things, that kind of stuff. It's not, you see them reporting up to HR, which is really also interesting. All those things are just, I think they should report up to marketing, and it should be an equal part of the brand approach. But
yeah, although a lot of people, I think I know a lot of CCOs who won't take or even look at a role unless they report directly to the CEO.
No, and that should be the right evolution.
And I think, if you've got a good dotted line relationship to the CEO, as even if you are reporting into legal or HR, then it can work. But if it is more of a defensive posture, then it probably doesn't work as well.
So Michael, why would they have them report through HR? What's the objective there?
I think a lot of them are because part of their scope or responsibilities are internal communications. Mm-hmm. And so part of internal communications is how you're communicating to your target employees, and so that's just sort of it. And sometimes they become it's like an evolution, they just sort of evolve in that way, and people are like, oh, I like that, and mm-hmm. so therefore they don't ever change it. And the CCO role, I think, is a newer role, and I love it because it really is putting, making PR sort of a bigger priority in the organization.
What is absolutely true is that the CCO is kind of the glue that holds all these functions together, whether it's HR, whether it's legal, whether it's customer service, sales, and the C-suite.
Well, and with full transparency marketing right now, where the consumer has direct access to every person in the organization, you want to have that person sitting in the front and center.
And internal is incredibly important, and it's the first line of external now. So look, we can fixate on structures, can't we? It's actually the people and the folks involved, and if it works for a company, it works. Sometimes you can have the perfect organization chart and it's dysfunctional. So but I know our readers are interested in it, and they like seeing how different companies do it. So listen, thank you, Michael. Real pleasure to chat and find out more about it, and looking forward to seeing the progression of the company.
Thank you so much.
The mid-sized holding company.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Couple of housekeeping announcements. The 40 Under 40 initiative, you've got 1 week roughly, you've got till May 14th to get your final submissions in for that. It's one of the biggest things we do on the brand, celebrating young talent, the leaders of tomorrow. And last year, talking of diversity, was the most diverse group we've ever honoured, and it was a tremendous evening because of that and many other things, but certainly because of that. Our Hall of Femme takes place, the event, on the 5th of June, and we're gearing up with a great programme for that to honour the women mentors and leaders as well as up-and-coming women in the field. London on May 21st, 2 weeks today, is Global Awards time. That's going to be a lot of fun. We've got more people coming than ever. We're going to celebrate global PR and PR in the regions, Asia, Europe, Latin America, and so on. So looking forward to that. It's a few tickets left if you still want to come. And as I mentioned, PR Decoded Purpose Principles is in Chicago on 17th of October. And just on the Global Awards, we can promise we will not run out of trophies. So worry not, you will get a trophy if you win an award. But that's all we've got time for on the PR Week. We'll see you next time.